Hello, I'm the Overpickard and welcome to a gorgeous and slightly overcast Limousin, France. It's been very hot here. We've been in the middle of a heat wave and it's finally broken and it's gorgeous and cool and lovely. So while I'm out here embracing the cool, I thought I'd make a little video about tyres, because tyres are one of the most, if not the most, important thing on our cars. They control your stopping, your handling, your fuel economy and your performance. It's literally how your car makes contact with the road, and your car can only work as well as your tyres can work. So it's quite bizarre that we don't often talk about tyres. So let's get to know our tyres, and let's start off with the basics. Obviously, this is a wheel, this is a tyre. Wheels are made, most wheels are made in imperial sizes. So this is a 15-inch wheel. So from here to here, it's 15 inches. And there are some metric wheels. Michelin, because Michelin are French, Michelin have been pushing for metric wheel sizes for decades, and it's never really caught on. There are certain cars that have metric wheels, 2CVs before 1959, certain Citroen H vans, traction Avants, certain Opels have many cars that came fitted with Michelin tires from factory also came with metric wheels, but it's no longer a thing, I don't think. Jolene here, being 1963, has 15-inch wheels. All tyres, however, are measured in metric. The reason for this is because Michelin have actually kind of pioneered tyre technology, and almost every great breakthrough ever made in tyre history has been made because of Michelin. They invented tubeless tyres and they also invented radial tyres. But I'll get to that in a minute. So when we talk about tyre size, we have some numbers on our tyre. And this says 125, and that means that the width of the tyre tread is 125 millimeters. These are 125 80s. 80 refers to the sidewall size, the height of the sidewall, and 80 means 80%. So the sidewall is 80% or 85%. I can't remember which of these are. Are they 85s or are they 80s? Can't remember. But for the sake of this video, it doesn't matter. So the sidewall is 85% or 80% of 125 millimeters. If you have like a 195 60 15, which is a very common road tyre, so that's 195 millimeters wide. 60% of that 195 millimeters is the height of the sidewall, and then the 15 is the size of the wheel. So now that's cleared up. In the world of classic cars, there are two main sorts of tyres. The first of those is a cross-ply tyre. Cross-ply basically means that the stuff that makes up your tyre, the layers of the tyre, cross over each other like this. And a cross-ply tyre has some really good things about it. It's incredibly pliable, so it gives a really nice ride. They don't have a massively high level of grip, but when they do let go, when they lose their traction, they let go in a really progressive manner. And this is one of the reasons why when you watch like old Le Mans footage or you watch old Grand Prix racing footage, you'll see the cars going around corners and doing these big, like, gentle drifts. And the reason is those racing drivers were able to balance the car right on that edge of grip. And because the brakes weren't very good, they were often entering corners much faster than would have been ideal. And so sliding the car through on that edge of grip. One of my favourite videos on the internet ever is a video of Fangio drifting his Grand Prix car, his Lancia Grand Prix car, around the Monaco circuit at 5 AM on public roads. And it just shows this beautiful progressive motion that these tyres give loose in, but they don't offer, like I say, a massively high level of grip. They do, they're all tube tyres, so they all require an inner tube, much like a bicycle. And they also give very nice steering because they don't have a very high level of grip. When you turn the steering wheel, it's easy to override that that friction and turn the wheel with ease. So cross-ply tyres give a very light steering feel. The second sort of tyres is radial tyres, and radial tyres are a much more modern sort of tyre. And a radial tyre, the layers of the tyre all run radially, basically. They all run together in the same direction. And they are a much more modern tyre. They have a much higher level of grip, but when that grip runs out, they tend to let go in more of a snappy manner. More modern tyres, new tyre technology has come quite a long way actually in the last 20 or so years. And the newer tyres have incredible grip, and when they do let go in a more progressive manner, but it's taken us a long time to get to that point. They do ride harsher than a cross-ply tyre, but they are lighter, they are stronger, so they're more resistant to punctures and stuff. They are faster, so they're faster rolling, so that means not only is your car faster, but also more fuel efficient. Being lighter, it makes your car accelerate faster, but also brake better, because before your car slows itself down, its own mass down, it has to stop the wheel. And the heavier the wheel is, the less that wheel wants to stop. So having a lighter tyre on, actually that's the thought behind alloy wheels as well. The lighter all this is, the faster your car's going to stop, but also accelerate. So they're more fuel efficient, they're safer, they last longer, and the reason they last longer is because they roll better. And that's why they save you fuel and all that. They're a much more modern and arguably better thing. Although cross-plies, for no real reasons that you can actually like, it's one of those worse is better things. Cross-plies have their place and they're a lovely thing. But if we are talking pure scientific, which is better, a radial tyre is much, much better. Another thing is that when Michelin first came out with radial tyres, they offered this tyre actually, the Michelin X, as a tubed tyre. And it was a tube tyre for quite a long time. But when they came out with tubeless tyres, the Michelin X became instantly tubeless. And so this tyre in the 60s was, in fact, Jolene had a pair of tubed Michelin X's that were incredibly dangerous when I first bought her. And I instantly changed the tyres. It was the first thing I did because they were from the 60s and they were incredibly dangerous. So there are no tubeless tyres, there are no radial tyres that have tubes. Why are tubes bad? What are tubes? What's happening? So a tube is an inner tube, much like a bicycle is. It's a butyl rubber tube, basically, with a valve, and it goes in between the wheel and the tyre. The problem with that is that it causes friction between the wheel and the tyre, or the inner tube can actually stick to the tyre, which is also bad. And it adds weight, it doesn't grip as well, and they like I said, they're heavy, and it's another thing. However, they are necessary on many cars, and if your car was designed for tubes, it should be absolutely fine to drive in the parameters that it was designed to drive in. Many cars have tubes, many classic cars have tubes, and if you have spoked wheels, 99% sure you have to use inner tubes. I spoke to a tyre specialist and a classic tyre specialist, and he assured me that there are rims out there. There are spoked rims, like you get on an MGB or a Sunbeam Tiger or any number of pre-war classics. That spoked wheels. There are companies that make spoked rims, and they say that they're tubeless. And he assures me that he's never ever dealt with a single spoked wheel that said it was tubeless, that didn't lose air all the time and wasn't an absolute pain. So he recommends every single one of the tyres that he fits to a spoked wheel, he recommends that the owner fit a high quality inner tube. And inner tubes have also gotten a lot better than they used to. Another thing with inner tubes is, as well as your tyre degrading over time, your inner tube can also degrade over time. So your tyre might look fine, but you don't know the condition, because you can't see it, of the inner tube inside. So it's really important that that you ask when you have your classic tyres fitted, if you are using inner tubes, ask how often that inner tube should be changed, and if it's the life of the tyre or if it's less. I'm not an inner tube specialist, so the best thing I can say to you is ask the specialist, or look up on the company's website of the sort of tubes you use. What's some of the other numbers and letters on this tyre? Because there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff on the side of a tyre. Well, there's this here. This is DOT. DOT stands for Department of Transport. And then there's a serial number. And the last 4 digits of this serial number are very, very, very important. The first 2 is the number of the week, so we've got 52 weeks in a year. And the second 2 numbers is the year. So this tyre says 0619. So it was made in the 6th week of 2019. Now then, if you are buying tyres from any sort of local garage or tyre retailer or anybody, they should not sell tyres to you that are more than 36 months old. Any tyre that is older than 36 months is considered not a new tyre and should not be sold to you. Okay, it's actually illegal in many places in the world, in fact, in most places in the world. But you now know that you can look up the date of when your tyre was manufactured and just check. I doubt that anyone would do such a thing, but there are unscrupulous people in this world. The other reason why you need to know the date is because, as well as checking it normally, after 5 years you should consider your tyre old. Any tyre that's older than 5 years is an old tyre. Now then, depending on what sort of tyre it is, so for example, if it's a performance tyre like that you would fit to an exotic car or a racing car or any high-powered car or any sports car, performance tyres have a softer rubber compound, which means they age faster. So I would personally recommend that if your tyre is over 5 years old, you replace that tyre. And they're not designed, sports tyres aren't designed to last as long. They are softer and they do degrade much faster. The reason why we no longer have a Paul Walker in this world is partly due to old tyres. A tyre can look perfect, it can look like brand new. But especially if a car's kept in like really dry conditions or a car's kept in the sun, it can look perfect, but they can go rock hard and give dramatically different performance than they were actually designed to give. So if your tyre's over 5 years old, you should, in my opinion, replace it. The money of changing your tyres is not worth your life. If your car's just a commuter car and you have a commuter sort of tyre, this is a Michelin X, so this is like a very good commuter tyre. After 5 years, you need to keep a really close eye on it. You need to check both sides of the tyre regularly, any signs of damage, any kind of cracking or crazing in the rubber, and you should change your tyres. Like I say, they give dramatically different performance with age, and you should definitely change your tyres before they are 10 years old. Okay? None of you should be rolling around on 10-year-old tyres. I recently went to a show and a guy turned up with Michelin X's like this, and they had a bibendum on the side, a Michelin man cast into the rubber. Now, they haven't made Michelin X's with a Michelin man actually cast into the sidewall since the 50s. And this man was driving on public roads on tyres from the 50s, which is incredibly dangerous, and you're not just putting your life at risk, you're putting other people's lives at risk, because those tyres can fail at any moment, and all 4 tyres could go together, and God knows what age the inner tubes were. I shudder just to think about it. So yeah, after 5 years, you should check your tyres all the time, at least once a week, and you should also change them before 10 years. Another thing that I'll say about old tyres is that if you buy a car that's been sat in a garage for any length of time, and it has flat tyres when you go to pick it up, like when you buy the thing, and it's sat on flat tyres, or it's got bulges here and here, that means that the car has been sat there long enough for the tyre to slowly deflate over time, or it's got a damaged valve, or anything like that. The problem is, if the car has been sat, and the weight of the car has been sat on a flat tyre, it will have deformed that tyre and weakened it. Not only that, but the flat spot in the tyre will then rub and vibrate when the tyre rotates. It'll go duh, 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 even if you can't feel it inside the car. This causes heat to build up in the tyre, and heat build up in a tyre is a really bad thing. So if you go to buy a car, even if the tyres are within 5 years, if the car has been sat on flat tyres, you really want to replace those tyres. Now then, what else can you do to maintain your tyres? What else can you do to look after your tyres? Well, the simplest thing that you can do is once a week, check them. Check both sides, front and back, and check the tread. Check it for cuts, bulges, slices, cracking, crazing, and any sort of damage that tyre may have sustained during that week. You know, you can clip a curb when you're parking, or you can hit a pothole on a road, on a motorway, a joint between a bridge, like an expansion joint or anything like that. It can cause damage to your tyre, and so you need to check it. The other thing that you need to do is check your tyre pressure. Now then, if you inflate your tyres at a garage, there's nothing wrong with that. Garage compressors are as good as any other compressor. However, I thoroughly suggest that you buy a tyre pressure gauge, right? The separate one that you just push onto the tyre, and that gives you your pressure. And the reason I suggest this is because the gauge that's on the compressor at the garage is just to give you a rough idea. Because once of a day, that gauge was accurate, but they kept out in the heat, in the sun, in freezing temperatures, in the rain. People throw them on the floor, people drop them. It's pretty much the worst conditions you could possibly keep any sort of gauge in, and they can be wildly inaccurate from one tyre to the other. Just because they both say the same number doesn't mean that's what's actually in your tyre. And so you'll get much better performance, much better fuel economy, much better handling if you have a gauge that you can actually check your tyres with, that's just in your toolbox, in your boot. They're not very expensive, they're like €10. The money that you save by having correctly inflated tyres every single week, you will save money on fuel. I guarantee it, right? Because when your tyres are the correct pressure, your car isn't dragging, and so you will save money on fuel, and that fuel money will more than pay for that gauge. You might have that gauge for 15 years, but it will save you money every single week. And you can inflate your tyres at most garages for absolutely nothing. So if you're looking for something that you can start doing, you want to get to know your car better and you want to do something mechanical, one of the best things that you can do is learn to inflate your tyres and learn to look after your tyres as well. I have a friend who's, in fact, it's a family member, who is a motorcycle mechanic. And he's been a motorcycle mechanic for twice my lifetime. And he often says that when people come to pick their bikes up from being serviced, they go, "Oh my God, my motorbike's so fast. It's incredible. What have you done to it? It performs so well. It corners amazing. What have you done to it?" And he's like, "I blew up your tyres." Because motorcycles, most of the time, they sit in a garage. They don't get used as much. And so because of that, people don't check the tyre pressure enough. And people don't check the tyre pressure enough in a car either. So that's really something that you need to watch and really something that you need to pay attention to. The second thing that you can do to look after your tyres is to check your tread depth. This is something you can easily do every single week, just as you check each tyre. Most places in the world have different laws, so I'm not actually going to give you any numbers. What I'll tell you to do is look up, it should be easily available online, your Department of Motor Vehicles or whatever it's called in your country will tell you. And it's actually a technical inspection fail, and if you get pulled over by the police and you've got bald tyres or tyres that are, you know, worn down, you'll get points on your license. So it's not just a safety thing, this could actually save you a lot of money. And you can buy a little tiny tyre gauge, and they're literally like a couple of euros. You can also use a vernier. If you've got a pair of measuring calipers or a vernier, you can use the bottom end of the vernier. And just press it into the centre and check the depth there, and then check it on the edge. And that'll tell you what your tyre tread depth is, and you should change your tyres way before you're at that depth, because it's not worth the risk of getting points on your license, and it's not worth the risk to your safety. That tread, those grooves in that tread, is there to shed water in case of rain. And if you have no tread, or if you have those grooves worn down, your performance in wet weather when you most need your tyres is going to be very diminished. Another thing that you can do every 6 months or so, depending on how much mileage you do, you need to rotate your tyres. So, for instance, on a front-wheel drive car, the front tyres wear a lot faster than the back. And also, tyres, the wheels on a car might look like they're all straight and facing forward, but they're actually not. There are things called camber, which is where the wheels go like this, so that when you go into a corner, the weight of the car rolls onto the tread of the tyre. There's caster, which is kind of like this, and there's also toe in and toe out. And all 4 wheels on a car, the back ones are set up one way, the front ones are set up on another way, and this can cause the tread to wear in a certain place that in another place on the car it wouldn't. So in order to make your tyres last their full lifespan, they need to be rotated around the car so that every single tyre wears evenly. If you have uneven tread wear, if your tyres are rubbing oddly, it's probably because your alignment's off. Now, every 2 years, I suggest that you have your car realigned. This is a process that doesn't take very long, but it really needs to be performed by a qualified mechanic in a garage. You can buy wheel alignment kits if you know what you're doing, but most garages have a really cool laser alignment thing that makes the job very quick, very simple, and very easy. And like I say, it doesn't take very long at all. But what it makes sure is that all 4 wheels are pointing where they're supposed to be pointing from the factory and the way that they were designed to be pointing. Obviously, if you're driving on city roads that are full of potholes, if you're driving over like bridge expansion joints and stuff like that, or even just usual wear and tear or spirited driving, it's going to affect your alignment over time. And like I say, making sure your wheels are pointed where they're supposed to be pointed isn't just a safety thing, it's a handling thing, it's a performance thing, and it's a pleasure of driving thing. And it's incredibly beneficial for not just your tyres, but your car, and all your joints in your car, and all your suspension joints and everything like that. It checks that nothing's having a load on it that it's not designed to take, or from an angle that it's not designed to take it. The next thing I'm going to talk about is tyre sizes, and I'm not talking about numbers now. I'm talking about low profile tyres and tall tyres. Low profile tyres, so lower than the car was designed to have originally on it, will have a dramatic effect on your car, because they will make your car accelerate faster, but they will decrease its top speed. They will also gear it down. So basically you'll have to rev a lot harder to maintain the same speed. This is because a smaller wheel covers much less distance for the same amount of rotations than a bigger wheel. If I got like a big wheel like this, in one rotation it would cover that much. If I got a much smaller wheel in one rotation, it would cover like a third of that distance, depending on obviously the size of the two wheels. But basically, a smaller wheel covers less distance for the same amount of rotations. It will also mean that you have a slower than indicated speed because your wheels are having to turn more times to do the same speed. This means that, for instance, my friend has lower profile tyres on his 2CV, and if he's going on the motorway and he's doing 110 kilometers an hour, he's probably not doing 110 kilometers an hour, even though his speedometer says he is. He's probably only doing 100 or 105 or something like that. And this isn't really a huge problem, although in many places in the world, in fact, I know for a fact it's a law in Australia, you have to, if you change the size of your wheel and tyre package, you have to have your speedometer adjusted. It's the law. And you won't pass tech if it's not. Another thing that happens is because your wheels and your tyres are turning many more times, your tyres will wear out faster. And not only that, but your wheel bearings will wear out faster. And because you're hitting more bumps in the road, because obviously a big wheel tends to ride over bumps, whereas a small wheel will sink into bumps, your suspension bushes won't last as long. So all your stuff won't last nearly as long by quite a considerable amount, especially wheel bearings and CV joints and stuff like that won't last as long by a considerable distance than the correct size tyre. But that doesn't mean that a taller tyre than standard is a good thing either, because it will actually mean that you're travelling faster than the number on your speedometer if you don't have your speedometer checked. So that means that you could drive through a speed trap and you think you're doing, I don't know, let's say 50 kilometers an hour in a 50 zone, and you're actually doing 54, and you get a speeding ticket and you don't understand why, because you think you were doing the correct speed. And it also gears your car up, which can make a car feel very sluggish and very slow. Also, bigger tyres add weight. It's one of the reasons why big four-wheel drives have such big engines, because a big, heavy, knobbly tyre not only drags, but it makes your car incredibly slow. So having a bigger wheel than is specified by the manufacturer isn't always a good thing either. And like I say, it can make your car feel very sluggish and very slow. But not only that, it can end with you getting a speeding ticket, which once of a day, people putting bigger tyres on their car wasn't really a thing. But now with the advent of kind of safari cars and all that, it's kind of in style to make your car more rugged and off-roady. I think Mad Max has a lot to do with that. Mad Max Fury Road. And a lot of people are making their cars more off-roady, whether they take them off-road or not, turning them all into crossovers while complaining that crossovers are stupid. But basically, it's not always the best thing, because like I say, it can gear your car up, it can make your car very sluggish, and even though it has a theoretical higher top speed, it takes forever to get there because you've also obliterated your acceleration. Now the tyre makes. It's my opinion that you should always go for the best make of tyre you can possibly afford. 2CVs, the tyre for a 2CV is the Michelin X. The 2CV was designed by Michelin and 2CV together. And that's why it has the amazing suspension, so that Michelin could show off their amazing tyre technology. And so a Michelin X has a rounded tyre profile, and it has a flexible sidewall. In fact, 2CV tyres run at quite low pressures, 1.2 bars at the front and 1.4 at the rear. The reason for this is because the tyre is actually part of the suspension unit and helps get rid of vibration. As well as adding grip and assisting performance. It's one of the reasons why Formula 1 cars don't use low-profile tyres, if you've ever wondered. Is because go-karts are the same. Go-karts have no suspension, except for the tyres, and that's because the big tyre wall creates grip. And in my opinion, the only tyre that should ever fit to a 2CV is a Michelin X. There are other tyres that fit by reputable manufacturers, but they tend to have a square tyre profile. And this means that as a 2CV goes round a corner, and the wheels do this, your square tyre is actually sitting on the edge of the tyre and not being able to roll around properly, and so you're actually reducing the footprint of your tyre as it rolls around a corner, which isn't very good. It's going to affect your handling characteristics. It's going to affect the character of the car, and not produce pleasurable driving experience, or even make it unsafe. So Michelin X's, it's what it was designed for, and it's the best thing for it. There are Chinese tyres available for 2CVs that are cheaper than Michelin X's, that look a lot like Michelin X's, but that doesn't mean that they are. The stuff that they're made of is much cheaper, much lower quality. They don't last as long by a long stretch. In fact, I truly believe that going for a tyre that's a copy tyre is a false economy, because you'll use 3 of those tyres in the same amount of time that you'll use one Michelin X if you drive properly. These tyres last forever, and they will get old before they get worn out. In fact, the tubed Michelin X's that came on my tyre became my clog inner soles because they've still got so much tread left on them. I recycled them because I didn't really know what to do with them. I felt a bit of a shame to just recycle them and throw them away, so I reused them. But yeah, they'll go old before they wear out, whereas the copy tyres are terrible. This doesn't mean that every single car came with a fantastic tyre from factory. The Michelin X is such a good tyre. It was actually used on the Lotus 11 racing car. There's not many tyres that you can put on your 2CV that were also raced at Le Mans, but other cars weren't so lucky and weren't fitted with amazing tyres from factory. A car that comes to mind is the 1275 GT Mini. Not the Mini Cooper. It's when they tried to get rid of the Cooper, and they tried to, like Austin tried to do British Leyland or whatever they were at the time, tried to do their own thing and not pay Cooper. And what happened is they put a tyre on the car called the Dunlop De Novo, and the slang for Dunlop De Novo is the Dunlop De No Grip, because they were absolutely terrible, and they were actually fitted to the car for warranty reasons, and they are utterly terrible and borderline dangerous. But don't worry, if you buy your tyres from a reputable classic car tyre reseller such as Coca Tyre or Longstone, there's a bunch of them about. They have a chart on their website, and they will tell you what's the best tyre for your classic car. And luckily, most of the crap classic tyres have actually been weeded out now, and we're only left with awesome stuff. We're only left with like the greatest hits of tyre history. And many classic tyres are now being remade with modern rubber compounds as well. So it means not only does your car ride properly and steer properly and handle properly because it has the correct profile of tyre on it that the suspension was actually designed for, but because you've got a modern rubber compound and not an old-fashioned one, the car will actually accelerate faster, roll better, get better fuel economy, like grip better, everything. So you can't really go wrong. But like I say, many of the retailers have a chart on their website, or you can always ring them up, and in my experience, they're more than happy to take the time to give you the advice to get you the best tyre for you. One last thing that I'm going to say is 2CVs do not require wheel weights. Do not balance a 2CV wheel on a balancer. They don't need it. A 2CV wheel is self-balancing, and if you put wheel weights on a 2CV wheel, once you mount it to the car and you drive down the road, what will happen is the wheel will try to balance itself, and because someone's added a weight in an odd place, it can actually deform the rim. It can deform the wheel and actually bend the wheel, and that can end in catastrophic failure, and at the very least produce a huge vibration. 2CV wheels normally are incredibly strong. They are really good wheels, and if they do get damaged on the rim and stuff, they can be repaired. And there's no need to, like I said, they're not designed for wheel weights. There's no need to fit wheel weights, and you just don't need to. So, but that's only 2CVs, mind you. Most other cars, 99% of other cars, need wheel weights, and you can now specify wheel weights that fit on the inside of your wheels and stick to the rim, if you don't want a big ugly wheel weight hanging from the rim. So, I hope this video has been both educational and entertaining. If it was, please click like down below. It lets me know that you enjoyed this video, but it also lets YouTube know that you enjoyed this video. And if you would like to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe down below. There's also a button at the end of this video that looks like my face that you can also click to subscribe. And if you have a friend who is looking to put new tyres on his car and you want to give them some education, or just might find this video interesting, or you just want to share it on social media, please do. It's massively helpful to this channel. I always read all of your comments, so if you have a comment, please leave it down below. I always enjoy hearing what you guys have to say, and I always read and try to respond to every single comment I can. Thank you all for watching. Please be awesome to each other, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.